At 5:17 local time, the forward watch aboard a U.S. Navy destroyer catches 3 surface contacts appearing on the radar at the same moment. They do not move like fishing boats. They do not follow the spacing of merchant traffic. There is no AIS signal, no clear identity, just 3 fast-moving hulls rising out of the dark water north of the Strait of Hormuz and closing in too quickly to be dismissed as routine. Inside the ship's operations center, the track supervisor bends closer to the console and reports it once, calmly and clearly. 3 small surface contacts bearing 048, range 9 miles, speed increasing. On the bridge, no one asks what that means. They already understand. The officer of the deck steps nearer to the windows, eyes locked on the black line of the horizon, where the sea and sky still blur together. Dawn is approaching, but not quickly enough. Somewhere beyond visual range, 3 unknown craft are moving with purpose, as if their decision has already been made. Condition 3, he says. There is no shouting, no confusion, just a steady command delivered in a controlled voice. From that moment on, every second matters. Across the ship, key stations come alive. Crew members move to their positions. Hatches open, boots strike steel, screens brighten inside CIC. The destroyer does not turn, not yet. It continues cutting through the narrow waters at a steady speed, outwardly unchanged. But aboard the ship, everything has shifted. At 5:18, the 3 contacts separate. One stays on the center line. The other 2 move outward, widening the formation, spreading the angle as if trying to divide the destroyer's attention across a broader front. It is a small maneuver, clean, intentional, far too coordinated to look like ordinary civilian movement. The tactical action officer watches the tracks settle into their new positions and gives the assessment no one on the bridge wanted to hear this early. Possible shaping movement. In Navy terms, that is the point where an approach stops looking normal. On the surface tracking display, the closest point of approach begins falling quickly. 8 miles, then 7.6, then 7.2. The captain arrives on the bridge without ceremony. No dramatic entrance, no rush of orders. He steps in, looks once at the tactical display, then turns his gaze through the bridge windows toward the empty-looking water ahead. "Talk to them," he says. Bridge-to-bridge calls go out across international frequencies. "Unidentified surface vessels. This is a United States Navy vessel conducting lawful transit. State your intentions and maintain safe separation. Only static answers." The contacts keep closing. At 5:19, the ship's optical systems begin to capture their shapes, low silhouettes, narrow beams. Fast hulls riding hard over the chop. White wakes trail behind them, bright lines spreading across the dark water. They are not dhows, not tankers, not random local skiffs moving with the morning traffic. They are fast boats. The electronic monitoring team brings the passive systems fully online. The SLQ-32 begins listening, pulling in every trace it can find across the spectrum. Search radar, short radio bursts, navigation signals, anything that might reveal what these craft are doing. Still, the destroyer holds steady. It does not flinch. The ship's 5-inch mount shifts a few degrees away from the center line. Not enough to provoke, just enough to be noticed by anyone watching through binoculars. Remote defensive stations come online. Camera systems tighten their focus. The destroyer stays steady, controlled, and precise. That steadiness is the message. At 5:20, one of the contacts sends a brief transmission. The signal is too short for voice identification, but long enough for the electronic warfare operator to capture it, tag it, and pass it up the chain. Seconds later, the bridge receives the update. The emission profile matches Iranian fast inshore attack craft. For a moment, no one speaks. There is no need. The situation now has shape, it has intent, and it has a flag. The Strait of Hormuz is already unforgiving water. In a place that narrow, hesitation can create problems. So can one wrong move. A destroyer cannot maneuver like a small boat. It cannot slide sideways. It cannot instantly escape a closing formation. And 3 Iranian fast craft approaching in broken formation near first light is not something any experienced watch team mistakes for routine traffic. The captain places both hands lightly on the bridge rail. "Log every bearing change," he says. "Record every hail. No sudden course correction. That order matters." At sea, the fastest way to lose control of a tense encounter is to behave as if control is already gone. At 5:21, the center craft increases speed. CIC sees it first. Lead contact now 28 knots. The 2 outer boats tighten their angles. One begins moving toward the destroyer's starboard bow. The other stays wider, almost holding back as if waiting to see how the ship will respond. It is not a full rush, it is something colder. A test. Another bridge-to-bridge call goes out, firmer than before. "Iranian craft, this is a United States Navy vessel. You are approaching at an unsafe distance. Alter course immediately." Again, there is no reply. No acknowledgement. No course change. No reduction in speed. Below the bridge, inside CIC, symbols glide across the digital sea picture with mechanical calm. But everyone watching those tracks can feel the pressure rising. The pattern is clear now. One boat presses the front, one leans toward the flank, one remains far enough out to react to whatever the destroyer does next. If the destroyer turns, they learn something. If it slows, they learn something. If it reacts too early, they learn even more. At 5:22, the long-range camera feed provides visual confirmation. Crew visible on deck, dark hulls, deck-mounted systems outlined against the low light. Not clear enough to declare immediate intent, but present, very present. The tactical action officer looks from the screen to the captain. "Sir, possible boxing pattern developing." The words hang in the bridge air for less than a second. The captain does not raise his voice. He does not need to. "Launch the helo." That single order changes the rhythm of the entire encounter. Aft, on the flight deck, the MH-60 Seahawk is already turning into the wind. Deck crew move beneath red and amber light, low and fast, every gesture practiced and efficient. The rotor blades begin to turn, tie-downs come free. The aircraft trembles, awake now, becoming part of the unfolding scene before the encounter has crossed its next line. Forward, the 3 Iranian boats keep coming. The lead craft is now moving across the destroyer's bow with unmistakable purpose. The flanking boat tightens from starboard, and somewhere in the dim water ahead of Hormuz, the pattern is finally beginning to reveal itself. At 5:21 local time, the Seahawk lifts from the destroyer's flight deck and climbs into the gray morning air over Hormuz. Below, the warship holds course. Ahead, the 3 Iranian fast craft continue forward, as if following a plan. From the bridge, the geometry looks dangerous. From the air, it looks worse. The MH-60 banks left and levels low over the water, its sensor turret already active. Infrared scans sweep across the surface. The operator follows the lead boat first, then shifts to the 2 on the flanks, each one standing out in sharp thermal contrast against the cooler water. Hot engines, bright exhaust trails, figures moving on deck, wakes slicing in the same direction with purpose. Then the sensor operator notices something else. 2 more heat signatures. They are faint, farther out. North of the original group, not moving with civilian traffic, not drifting, not random. They are holding position. Additional contacts, he reports. The aircrew sends the feed directly back to the destroyer. Inside CIC, the tactical picture updates within seconds. 2 new returns appear near the outer edge of the surface search range. They are weak but steady, sitting farther away as if they had been waiting for the first 3 boats to pull attention forward before revealing themselves. That is the moment the encounter changes. It no longer looks like simple pressure. It begins to look coordinated. The tactical action officer studies the spacing and gives the assessment in a flat voice. Layered approach. No one on the bridge asks what he means. They can see it for themselves. 3 fast boats up front, close enough to force a response. 2 more positioned behind the first group, outside the initial picture. That is not random movement, that is structure. At 5:22, the Iranian lead boat pushes harder toward the destroyer's starboard bow. One of the flankers widens again, staying just beyond the angle where the destroyer's own movement might trap it too close. The third boat pauses for a moment, then accelerates to fill the space the others have opened. Each craft is moving differently. Together, they are creating the same problem. Another warning goes out over bridge-to-bridge radio. Iranian craft, this is a United States Navy vessel. You are approaching at an unsafe distance. Alter course immediately. Static answers. Nothing else. No reply. No correction. No claim that they misunderstand. Just 5 hulls now, not 3, spread across the water as if they are showing the destroyer what the next few minutes may become. The captain remains on the bridge, eyes moving between the dark horizon and the tactical display. He does not order a turn. He does not change speed. He does not give the Iranian boats the reaction they appear to be looking for. No visible American flinch. Steady course, he says. Keep logging. That is the discipline of a ship built for pressure. Not every dangerous moment is answered by escalation. Some are answered by holding control of the timeline and refusing to let the other side dictate the pace. At 5:23, the Seahawk moves farther out. From 300 feet above the water, the full spread becomes easier to read. The first 3 boats are tight, low, and fast, riding hard through the chop. The 2 farther north are not rushing in yet. They are waiting in a way that feels deliberate, almost patient, as if they want the destroyer to commit to a response before they reveal their own part in the encounter. The helicopter crew zooms in. One of the northern boats shows a mounted position near the bow. The other looks heavier than the first group, broader in profile, possibly serving as a command or support craft rather than simply another fast boat. The sensor operator records everything with exact timestamps. Every heading change, every burst of speed, every movement on deck. Because once an encounter like this begins to build, the recorded feed becomes just as important as the ship's main battery. Back aboard the destroyer, the electronic warfare team detects something new. A narrow band signal. Short, controlled. Not coming from the boats, but from the Iranian coastline. The report moves from electronic warfare to CIC, then directly to the bridge. Possible land-based surveillance radar bearing consistent with the mainland. That changes the atmosphere again. Now the destroyer is not only being pressured by fast craft on the water, it is also being watched from shore. The captain takes in the update without changing expression. By now, one thing is clear. This was never just a random group of boats moving into the wrong place at the wrong time. Someone else is watching the encounter unfold in real time. Someone else may be measuring response times, reaction limits, and command discipline. The boats are only the visible part. The rest of the system remains hidden. At 5:24, the Seahawk crosses the lead group at a safe distance and broadcasts directly. Iranian naval craft, this is a U.S. Navy helicopter. You are maneuvering unsafely toward a United States vessel. Alter course now. The message is repeated. Still, there is no verbal response. But silence is not the only kind of answer. The lead Iranian boat shifts 5 degrees, then corrects back onto its original line. Not enough to disengage, just enough to show that the warning was heard and deliberately ignored. Another craft increases speed to match. The farthest flanker begins sliding lower toward the destroyer's southern side, widening the pressure arc across the ship's forward path. Inside CIC, the picture sharpens into something more serious. They're trying to stretch us, one controller says, and that is exactly what it looks like. Not an immediate engagement. Not yet. A forced decision environment. If the destroyer turns toward one group, it opens space for another. If it slows, the boats compress the range. If it reacts too aggressively, Iran gets the footage it may be trying to create. At 5:25, the captain gives the next order. Keep the helo overhead. No warning rounds. No course change. That matters because it tells the crew what this encounter is really about. Not noise, not fear, control. The destroyer's mounts remain trained. Cameras stay locked. Radio calls continue. Above the water, the Seahawk circles, making the entire Iranian formation visible from angles they can no longer hide from. Then CIC receives another update from electronic warfare. The shore emission is back. Longer this time. Stronger. Still not a direct targeting signal, but no longer casual. The tactical action officer looks up from the display. This is no longer just a cluster of Iranian boats pressing too close in the half-light near Hormuz. It is a layered setup, building one move at a time, and the destroyer is now directly inside it. At 5:26 local time, the distance between the lead Iranian boat and the destroyer drops below 2 nautical miles. That is where close maritime pressure stops being theoretical. On the bridge, the horizon is no longer empty. Through the forward glass, the lead craft is now visible without optics, a dark, low hull driving hard across the water at high speed, bow spray flashing white in the first thin light of dawn. To starboard, one of the flankers is pulling tighter. Farther out, the other contacts remain spread across the surface, keeping the shape of the setup open. Inside CIC, the track lines begin to overlap in dangerous ways. Lead contact increasing closure. Starboard flanker holding intercept angle. Southern contact still drifting low. Each report comes fast and clipped, exact, controlled. No wasted words, no emotion in the voices, only direction, speed, distance, and intent. The destroyer holds course. That is not hesitation, it is a choice. The easiest thing for a warship under pressure is to show pressure. Turn wide, lose speed, signal discomfort. But once a ship begins moving to the rhythm of smaller, faster craft, it is no longer setting the terms of the encounter. It is being managed by them. The captain understands that. So does every sailor on the bridge. At 5:27, the lead Iranian boat makes the move everyone has been expecting. It cuts hard across the destroyer's bow. Not close enough to collide, not yet, but close enough to force a decision. Its bow angle snaps inward. A sharp wake curls behind it. The hull slices across the destroyer's projected path like a dark line drawn across a chart. For half a second, the move almost looks reckless. Then the purpose becomes clear. This is not poor seamanship. This is a crossing challenge. If the destroyer turns away, Iran gets the image it wants. If the destroyer visibly slows, Iran gets the moment. And if the Americans respond too aggressively, Iran gets another kind of advantage entirely. CPA dropping, CIC reports. 1.4 nautical miles and tightening. On the bridge, the helmsman waits for the order he knows could come at any second. It does not come. Maintain course, the captain says. Then, in the same calm voice, he adds the next order. Bring all mounts to full standby. The command moves through the ship like electricity through steel. Forward systems lock in. Remote stations align with greater precision. Combat systems shift from watchful posture to immediate readiness. No one is taking action yet, but the distance between watching and responding has become much smaller. Above the water, the Seahawk drops lower. The helicopter crew now has the clearest view of the entire scene. From overhead, they can see the lead Iranian craft crossing the destroyer's forward path, the starboard flanker keeping pressure, and the other boats adjusting in response. Not randomly, not nervously. They are correcting with the cold discipline of a formation that knows exactly what it is trying to create. The sensor operator zooms in on the nearest craft, crew on deck, helmets visible. One man crouched near a mounted position, another turns back toward the stern, possibly passing signals. The live feed streams directly to the destroyer. On the bridge, no one says the word hostile. Not yet. But everyone feels how close the situation is getting to that line. At 5:28, the electronic warfare team catches another signal from shore. Longer this time, more focused. Still not a full targeting lock, but closer to something deliberate. The report moves through CIC and reaches the bridge within seconds. Mainland source still active. Intermittent sweep. Possible tracking support. That means the boats may not be acting alone in any meaningful sense. Someone ashore may be building the same tactical picture, watching American spacing, studying reaction timing, and feeding confidence to the formation on the water. The captain listens, then gives a sequence of orders so controlled they almost sound routine. Keep recording. Warn them again. Do not maneuver unless collision becomes unavoidable. That is the line. A destroyer can endure pressure. It can endure noise. It can endure provocation. But it will not surrender control of its course unless the sea itself leaves no other option. What it cannot do is give up legal and tactical control of the encounter before a clear threshold has actually been crossed. Another bridge-to-bridge transmission goes out, sharper than before. Iranian military craft, you are creating a dangerous maritime situation. Alter course immediately. You are being recorded. This time there is an answer. Not in words, in movement. The lead craft accelerates. It does not turn away. It surges forward. Its bow lifts slightly as the engines bite harder into the water, spray widening behind it in the pale morning light. For the first time since the contacts appeared, there is no room left for doubt. The movement is meant to compress the final safe distance between the two vessels and force the destroyer into a visible reaction. Lead boat accelerating, CIC reports. That gets everyone's attention because the language has changed. Not approaching, not closing, accelerating. The defensive teams track carefully. The bridge remains quiet except for official calls. Above them, the Seahawk tightens its orbit and issues another warning. Iranian craft, alter course now. Still, there is no reply. Then the destroyer responds, not with live fire, but with something the Iranian boats cannot ignore. The 5-inch mount completes its movement and settles visibly along the threat axis. Remote stations lock into position. The Seahawk holds overhead. Every camera on the ship and in the aircraft is now focused on the same small cluster of Iranian hulls. The message is clear. We see you, all of you. And if this goes one step further, there will be no confusion about who made that choice. For 3 long seconds, the lead boat keeps coming. Then, just enough to be noticed, it reduces speed. Not by much, only enough to break the final push. But before anyone aboard the destroyer can relax, CIC detects a new radar return forming beyond the eastern edge of the surface picture. A larger hull, a steadier track, not another fast boat. Something else is entering the scene. At 5:31 local time, the new contact on the eastern side of the display stops being just a radar symbol and becomes a vessel. Larger, heavier, holding outside the immediate pressure ring. From the destroyer's bridge, it first appears as a dark block against the brightening horizon. Too broad to be another fast inshore craft. Too deliberate in its movement to be random local traffic. It is not rushing in. It is not weaving. It is standing off, almost separate from the tension unfolding closer to the ship. Inside CIC, the surface watch refines the track. Larger contact maintaining distance. Speed steady. Bearing 071. The tactical action officer studies the spacing and understands the role almost immediately. This vessel is not there to do the close-in pressure work. It is there to observe, coordinate, and hold the outer edge of the formation together. An overwatch platform, maybe command and control, maybe insurance. Either way, it changes the picture. The destroyer is no longer dealing with a loose group of aggressive boats. It is facing a layered formation with another set of eyes positioned outside the immediate encounter. The captain shows no outward reaction. He looks once at the larger contact, then returns his attention to the 3 closest Iranian boats still holding near the edge of safe separation. Keep the outer hull tagged, he says. Do not lose the near contacts. That order matters. In a setup like this, the most dangerous moment is not always when the pressure tightens. It is when the target becomes focused on the wrong piece of the picture. The destroyer does not make that mistake. At 5:32, the Seahawk moves wider, giving the ship a broader overhead view of the entire area. The feed streaming back into CIC is now sharper and more complete than the Iranians likely expected the Americans to build this quickly. The first 3 boats are no longer just approaching contacts. They are mapped behavior, every turn, every burst of speed, every pause. The 4th and 5th contacts are no longer vague shapes near the edge of the display. They are fixed points in a larger pattern, and that is when the setup begins to lose strength. Because a maneuver like this depends on confusion. It works by denying clarity, forcing the other side to guess, and shrinking time until every option feels bad. But the destroyer is not guessing anymore. It sees the lead pressure boat, it sees the flankers, it sees the standoff vessel, it sees the spacing between them, it sees the open water they are trying to turn into a controlled box. The captain does not say it out loud. He does not have to. The ship has the picture now. And once a destroyer has the picture, control begins to shift. At 5:33, one of the Iranian boats makes another push. It is the same aggressive craft that had pressed hardest minutes earlier. Now it surges again, cutting toward the destroyer's starboard side at a sharper angle than before. Its wake spreads behind it in a long white fan. The bow lifts. The engines run hot enough to glow sharply through the Seahawk's infrared feed. Nearest contact accelerating, CIC reports. Rapid closure. The bridge does not erupt. No raised voices, no confusion. The captain gives one short sequence of orders. Track him hard. Keep course. Final warning. The bridge-to-bridge call goes out immediately. Iranian military craft, you are creating an unsafe and escalating maritime situation. Alter course now. This time, the destroyer's posture changes with the warning. Not dramatically, not recklessly, just enough. The 5-inch mount settles with unmistakable precision. The starboard defensive stations tighten their alignment. The Seahawk stops its wide circle and holds directly above the forward pressure line, framing the Iranian boat from overhead in a way that leaves no room for doubt. The effect is immediate. For the first time in the encounter, the nearest Iranian crew is not just looking at an American warship. They are looking at a complete system looking back at them. Ship, aircraft, optics, defensive systems. Recording, no panic, no drift, no exposed opening, just one cold, connected machine. The Iranian boat continues forward for another 2, maybe 3 seconds. Then it reduces speed. Not a full withdrawal, not yet. But enough to break the rhythm, enough to show that the driver understands exactly where the threshold now sits. Above them, the Seahawk camera captures movement on the Iranian deck. Crew members pull back from the forward position. One turns and looks upward. Another moves away from the mounted system. On the destroyer, every detail is logged instantly. Every inch of hesitation matters because hesitation is the first crack in a pressure maneuver. At 5:34, the larger Iranian hull still does not close in. That tells the captain something important. If the Overwatch vessel believed the fast boat still controlled the tempo, it would move closer, tighten the formation, and reinforce the pressure. But it does not. It stays back and watches the nearest boats lose momentum, one decision at a time. That means the Americans are no longer being pulled through the setup. They are turning it back. CIC now has every Iranian movement feeding into one refined tactical picture. The lead craft that tried to force the crossing challenge. The flanker that held pressure on the starboard angle. The southern boat that drifted wide, waiting for a turn that never came. The outer contacts that appeared to be waiting for a visible American mistake that never arrived. The pattern is now fully exposed, and once exposed, it loses much of its power. At 5:35, the first real break appears. The southern Iranian craft peels away by a few degrees. It is subtle, the kind of movement that could be missed from the water. But from above, it is impossible to miss. A southern contact opening, the Seahawk operator calls immediately. Seconds later, the starboard flanker begins widening as well. Then the nearest pressure boat eases off a little more speed. None of them are leaving in a hurry, but none of them are pressing the same way anymore. The formation is loosening. The pressure arc is beginning to collapse. On the bridge, the destroyer remains exactly what it has been from the start. Steady, lawful, unmoved. That is the point. The Iranian boats came in expecting to shape the encounter. They tried to use speed, angles, silence, and pressure to force the destroyer into a visible reaction. Instead, the destroyer held its line, built the full picture, and made every boat operate under the certainty that it was being seen, measured, recorded, and watched from above. One more wrong decision would have been clear to everyone, and now they no longer seem eager to make it. At 5:36, the captain watches the range begin to open and says the one thing no one on the bridge needs explained. They're losing it. Not the boats, the setup. And in the waters near Hormuz, that matters more than anything that never had to happen. At 5:38 local time, the distance finally begins to increase. Not quickly, not all at once, but enough for every watchstander aboard the destroyer to recognize the shift. The nearest Iranian fast craft is no longer pushing forward. Its bow sits lower in the water. The wake behind it has shortened. To starboard, the flanking boat continues drifting wider by degrees. Farther out, the southern contact keeps sliding away from the pressure arc it had spent the last several minutes trying to hold in place. Overhead, the Seahawk remains on station, its camera turret fixed on the formation below. From the helicopter's feed, the change is even clearer than it is from the bridge. What had looked like one coordinated setup now looks like 5 separate decisions, each one pulling a little farther back from the edge. Inside CIC, the reports keep coming. Nearest contact decreasing speed. Starboard contact opening separation. Southern vessel now outside intercept geometry. No one calls it a retreat. Professionals do not rush a moment like this. At sea, one of the most dangerous phases of a confrontation can come when one side starts to step back. A force that has lost the tempo may still try to reclaim it with one final sharp move. A fast boat can close distance in seconds. A tense crew can misread a signal. One bad turn can undo 10 minutes of discipline. The captain knows that. So the destroyer does not relax. Not outwardly, not internally. Maintain track on all contacts, he says. Keep the helo overhead. Stay on course. That last order matters most. The destroyer has not been pushed off its line. It has not surrendered speed. It has not been turned, boxed in, or forced into giving up water. That is the quiet center of the entire encounter. The Iranian boats came in fast, silent, and organized. They tried to shape the destroyer's choices with angles, pressure, and timing. But the American ship never gave them the reaction they needed. No panicked turn, no rushed acceleration, no premature warning action, no break in command discipline, just steel, sensors, optics, and restraint moving together as one system. At 5:39, the larger Iranian vessel holding outside the immediate pressure ring begins to angle away. At first, the movement is slight, almost careful, as if the crew aboard does not want the decision to look too obvious. But once the turn begins, it does not stop. Its track bends east, carrying it farther from the destroyer and farther from the fast boats it had been shadowing from a distance. The tactical action officer catches it immediately. Outer contact disengaging. That confirms what the bridge already senses. The larger vessel, whether it was coordinating, observing, or simply holding the outer edge of the formation, is no longer trying to keep the encounter together. Without it, the fast boats closer to the destroyer begin to look exactly like what they are becoming. Separate craft with fewer options and no clear way to regain control of the moment. The captain says nothing. He only watches. That silence has weight. No celebration, no dramatic statement, no attempt to embarrass the other side over the radio. The destroyer does not need to announce what is happening. The geometry is already telling the story. At 5:40, the nearest Iranian boat turns first. Not sharply, not in panic. Just enough to break the last line of pressure and move off the destroyer's path for good. Seconds later, the starboard flanker follows. Then the southern contact opens even wider. From above, the Seahawk records the sequence clearly. One boat gives way, then another. Then the rest of the formation begins to come apart, widening into safer distance. That is how encounters like this often end. Not with noise, not with fire, but with space. Space reopening on the water, space returning to the timeline. Space coming back to the crew of the warship that refused to give it away in the first place. At 5:41, the electronic warfare team reports that the last meaningful signal from shore is fading. No more narrow sweeps, no more intermittent support. Whatever element on the mainland had been watching the situation in real time has either switched off or stepped back. The entire picture is cooling at once now, on the surface, in the air, and across the spectrum. Only then does the captain give the next instruction. Recover the helo when ready. Aft on the flight deck, the crew prepares for the Seahawk's return. The tie-down teams move into position, low and controlled, ready for the rotor wash that is about to roll across the deck. The helicopter banks once over the starboard quarter, then turns back toward the ship. Its camera continues gathering the final frames of the Iranian formation, spreading out across the water. Inside CIC, the record is complete. Every bearing change, every unanswered warning, every burst of speed, every visible deck movement, every second of the attempted pressure pattern. What Iran appeared to want was friction, a moment that would push an American destroyer into visible uncertainty near one of the most sensitive waterways in the world. What it got instead was exposure. The boats were seen, the structure was seen, and the hesitation at the end was seen too. At 5:43, the Seahawk touches down on deck. Its wheels settle against the steel. The rotor blades continue turning as deck crews move in quickly and carefully beneath the spinning disc. Forward, the destroyer continues through the waters near Hormuz on the same heading it held when the first 3 contacts appeared. That is the final image. Not smoke, not wreckage, not a dramatic flash on the horizon. A U.S. Navy destroyer still on course, still steady, still moving exactly where it intended to go. Behind it, the Iranian boats continue opening range across the brightening water. Their pressure play has been reduced to fading wakes and recorded evidence. They came in expecting to force the moment. Instead, they were the ones who stepped back. And near the Strait of Hormuz, sometimes that is the entire story.